Number 4, if you could decide on a location for a new state capital, a new parish capital in some cases, what location would you use?
Could you please repeat?
If you could decide on a location for a new state or parish capital, what location would you choose? That's number 4. Number 5, why? Beside 5, right? Why? It's taken in the context that you make a claim and the person is asking you why, like ask for justification. Number 6, what would happen if you had 2 parish capitals?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Number 6, what would happen if you had 2 parish capitals? Number 7, draw a simple blueprint of your ideal parish capital. Blueprint of your ideal parish capital. Did we get that? Number 8.
Yes.
Number 8. Quote what your textbook said about subsets. Quote what your textbook said about subsets. Number 9. Outline how we do long division. Outline how we do long division. Given, number 10? Yes. Number 10, given different sets of numbers, how would you classify them? All right, no. You have some trigger questions for 1 through 10. What I would like you to do is to write beside it, if it's a knowledge question, an application question, an evaluation question, whatever it is where you think it comes on the hierarchy of the Bloom's taxonomy. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Not a few seconds, a little time to do that.
We should,
yeah.
Could you repeat, do what from 1 to 10, or we should line up?
I'm saying, you remember the blanks that you left beside the numbers?
Yeah.
Go back to Bloom's taxonomy, and based on the information I gave you beside each one, decide if the question is knowledge evaluation, if it's comprehension, if it's application. Label each of them some name from the Bloom's taxonomy. You can work with him, but does he have them? St. Lucia's not turned on there. Oh, St. Lucia? St. Lucia?
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Nelson.
Yeah. We got started a little bit ahead of time of you. Well, not ahead of time, but a little before you came in.
But we got them. We got the 10.
Okay, all right. You can talk among yourself and make a decision, or you can work on your own, and then we'll discuss this.
Okay.
Some of them we can identify immediately, right? All right, anybody ready with the first three?
Those are knowledge-based questions.
Number one and number two are knowledge.
Number one, number two are knowledge base. The words are there already. The what and the where.
Number three.
One, two, and three.
Pardon me?
1, 2, and 3 are knowledge-based.
It's you can point to
The third one is that's something I don't know. I'm sorry.
So we have knowledge base for the first three, right? You're going to point it on the map. So is either you know where it is or you don't. Although
Right.
to point to something on the map might take a little bit more because sometimes you have to read something because it's, you know,
You're gonna have to know
yes,
that you
yes.
north, south, east, west, and
Well, probably you just have to know, if you're talking about a capital, probably have to know what state or the parish. So that is good, you know, yeah. All right. Now, number 4, it says, if you could decide came under what? Yeah, that's evaluation.
Evaluation.
Decide. If you could decide, where would you put it? Yes. So, now, you know, capitals have what you call it, a lot of the business related offices, you know, like the place you do the things like you get certificates of birth, you apply for passports, tax office, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes they're in the capital. So if this person is going to decide on a new location for the state capital, probably, well, you're making, it's decision making. So you could, well, that is one of the words under evaluation. It's judge, argue, decide, evaluate, assess, those kinds of things. So you would have to work with it. One time before all of you were born, you had to come to Kingston to do everything. But now they have, you know, sites that you can do some different businesses. Some of them you still have to come to town because if you want to go to the American Embassy, there's just one. So you'd have to come to town. Okay? So why? Number 5. Why comes under?
Analysis.
yes. So if you make a comment and somebody asks why, you have to go into what you deem is the root for you making that kind of decision. So, or forming that opinion or making that comment. Okay. Draw a blueprint.
Oh, what would happen if you had
Number 6.
Oh, what would happen if you had two parish capitals?
Synthesis.
You call that synthesis.
What would happen if?
Predict.
what would happen
What will happen? Yes.
if you had capital?
So that means you're predicting. So probably that is synthesis indeed, because you have to go work out a number of stuff in terms of accessibility. You have to know what is available in the capital. You have to know if, for instance, people have to come to work in the capital because they need somebody to work in these offices and so on. You'd have to consider things like transportation. Probably you'd have to have a shuttle bus. You know, all those kinds of things could come into it. So you have to pull things together and produce. All right, where are we now? Number 7. Draw a simple, what did it say?
Blueprint of your ideal crash.
Yes.
Because I mean, an application, like you're writing an example.
Well, probably you'd have to understand what all of it is. So probably it could be comprehension. And some of these lines are not as clear cut, you know, sometimes they're mailed it. But I mean, to change a state capital is not a joke. It takes a lot of time and expertise and planning, and you have to do dry runs. You know, probably if you have a number of things that you have to bring to the capital, you have to think about availability of electricity and things like that. That's right. And you have to have a lot of input from other experts. Okay, are we at 8?
What was number 7?
Number 7, we think it would be comprehension, because you have to understand city planning, you have to, that kind of a thing. And city planning
Okay.
is not a joke.
Yeah.
Now, number 8, quote.
That's knowledge.
That's easy, that's a giveaway, right? If you have to quote something, either you know it or you. Either you know it or you.
Or
Don't.
you don't know it.
All right. I say describe.
Describe or outline?
What did I say?
Outline.
Outline the steps.
Outline.
Number 8 is one.
Yes.
That's describing too. So,
Yeah.
to understand it too.
You have to understand it, but also, yes, you know, the thing about, as I said before, there are a number of things that, because as you go up the ladder, you have to have knowledge, you have to have all of the things that take you up to that point. Do we see that? So that means when you're planning, and I'm going to say a lot more about planning, but that means when you're planning, you have to know that what is involved as you come up the ladder, and where you want to take your students, you'd have to design the questions. You know, you can pre-write your questions or just put, you know, words to remind you of how you're going to phrase it, so you can pull that child from the lower levels. But knowledge at the lower level is never wasted, because it's really encapsulated by the time you reach the higher level of thinking.
So where are you? 8, 9, or 10? I don't know. I miss you where you are. 8, 9, or 10.
What did we say 8 was? Knowledge, because it's quote. If you have to quote something, either you know it or you don't.
That one is what, number 8?
Yes. What did you have written beside number 8?
I didn't do that number 8.
What was the question?
Quote what your textbook said about subset.
Quote. Are you listening for number 8?
Oh, so that would be knowledge base, right?
Yes. What did you have written? What's the statement you had written beside number 8?
Subset is a set from a larger set.
No, I didn't say that. That is giving the definition. As the question was, the instruction was, quote the definition of subsets or something to that nature.
Quote what your textbook said about
Quote what your textbook said about
subset.
subsets. So they would turn around now and give me the definition. Yes? So that's
Right.
a base question.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9, what was that?
Outline how we do long division.
Outline how we do long division. Is that the highest level? Yeah, it's comprehension. Comprehension. No, that's where we reach out. We have reached on the ladder.
Oh, okay.
That's where we reach on the ladder. Okay? What about number 10? What did number 10 say?
Given different sets of numbers, how would you classify them? That's application.
Yes, that's application. Because classifying would be, and I was distressed to know that 7th graders do not, the first time they're being introduced to integers. Is that true? Grade 7. Or they're not introduced till grade 8. Grade 7, you introduce integers. What are integers?
Numbers, negative and positive numbers.
I wouldn't say that.
It's a set of whole numbers, they are opposite and zero.
I would say, yes, that's right. The set of integers do not include fractions, so you can't say it's all numbers. It is the counting numbers,
Positive
the
and
opposites, and 0. So we get like 0, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, and so on. Yes? So you can classify those numbers. If you are given that set, you can classify them into smaller sets. You can say even numbers, you can say odd numbers, you can say numbers divisible by 4 or numbers divisible by 3. And we multiples, well, divisible by 4, the multiples of 4. But the thing is that, do we know divisibility rules? This is off task.
Yeah.
Divisibility rules.
I think, I'm not talking about, I think they learn at grade 6 or probably grade
4. Yeah.
But the thing is that, you know, like that division is a major problem of students at the primary level. So coming up to high school and grade 7, they have challenge on what the teachers now and they to give them short division as a means to know long division and both short division, but they move away from the divisibility because it's very difficult. I should don't really see how it really can.
What divisibility rules?
Yeah, there's
okay.
Coming to the division process.
Okay.
So probably I don't know, some teachers probably have to be innovative in terms of trying division first, or they try the division both short and long, and then they implement division as a way to help them to the division process. But it's a challenge for most research too.
So here we have 10 questions, and we were able to decide on at what point that the required skills are on the Bloom's taxonomy. So, yes.
Comprehension was at what point? It was number
2.
Number 2?
It was above knowledge. Knowledge comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation.
So number 1 is knowledge.
I think the first three.
No, I'm talking about the Bloom's taxonomy.
Yes,
Knowledge
that's
is
the
step
bottom.
1,
Yeah.
and analysis.
No, comprehension.
No, comprehension is number 3.
Where's my lesson plan? I have a lesson plan. You know what to do. Believe it or not.
And number 3 is application and analysis. 4.
Okay, so on Bloom's taxonomy, we I think we have it in the note from last week.
I had it in
Order.
yeah. Because you gave us the order, the application, synthesis, knowledge, comprehension. So it's knowledge, then comprehension and application and analysis.
So it's synthesis and evaluation.
Wait, which one is the first one? Knowledge.
Knowledge.
The second one is comprehension.
That takes the least scale.
Knowledge, comprehension, application, and evaluation. After application, wait, I have it in like the wrong order.
Well, we can't take up any more time with that. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. What we are going to do is we did that. Okay. We're going to continue with the theories because you have a paper to prepare on that. So we're going to continue with the theories. After that, we are going to language, and then we are going to cooperative learning groups if we have time. All right. So the next thing we're going on to now is to look at the theorists. Just before though, there was a study of 9th and 10th grade students, and the findings suggested that we have, they have a well-developed sense of mathematics, whether they like it, whether they don't like it. They're not going into any deep question. Maybe it's just, you know, their spontaneous response to the subject. It stated that mathematics has a well-defined sequential structure. Some people say that. Some people say math is a journey of discovery. Some of them said mathematics is an uncertain journey, and some say mathematics is a tool. They don't know about anything. They just say that. Uncertain journey means they approach it with some misgivings.
But you know, one thing that really got me when I was in high school was that you can try to swat everything else, but you can never swat math. You know, that was just something when I saw many persons swatting stuff, I'm like, but you know, you can't swat math.
Well, the thing about it is, if you try to swat math, you get yourself in too many places, because you know, this is a lesson I'm going to swat. You have to see connections, and then you can put things on the umbrellas.
So it's a well-defined structure.
Yes, you can put things, because you learn in the lower grades that division by 0 is impossible. By the time you get up to a little bit more, they don't say that anymore. They say if you have a 0 in the denominator, it is undefined. So it's like spiraling upwards, that you know, you get more sophisticated with what is going on. The situation with mathematics, to me, I do not know if it is something like it's contagious, like they hear people around them saying they don't like math, they've never been good at math, and look like it's legitimate not to be good at math. Because some people will declare, I don't do math, you know, that kind of a thing. And sometimes they ask, where are we going to use this again, miss or sir? And so therefore you get this situation where it's almost legal or expected to say that you do not do well in math. The things that are not given a chance to flourish. When I say given a chance to flourish, if you go into a classroom and you say, today we are going to be working with division of fractions. And we say this fraction divided by this fraction. Keep the first fraction, switch that one and switch the second one and multiply. That's what most teachers say if it's a teacher-directed thing. I have never heard a student ask why, but I don't know. I can't say that. I should take that back because I do not. I'm going to take that back because I do that. I'm not taught primary school, so you know. But the thing is that teachers have to invite students or bring the subject to the fore and see, you know, how you can justify it in front of your students. I am teaching this abstract algebra to some students, and on one occasion I was saying, how did we arrive at where we are in this particular topic? Look at how it has developed. It has developed from the Pythagorean theorem to the trig functions to the double angles to the half angles, and all of them. You don't have to swap anything there, nothing. All you have to do is to know that when you are in a place where you need it, it's easy. It's straight algebra to go from the Pythagorean theorem, which I'm sure everybody heard about in high school. And then you go on to the trig functions. And after you go to the trig functions, you're there. And answering, yeah? It would be, but you need to also, in addition, you have to see the connection, or else you fret yourself about the trig functions. Then you go and worry yourself about the double angles. Then you go and worry yourself about the half angles. And one thing just leads right into the other. So I was showing them, no panic. You know some algebra, you can move something from one side of the equation to the next and change the sign. We don't even know what's the justification for that. But we say to the student, change side, change sign. And we're done with them. You see what I'm saying? And if they don't remember that, they don't even know why. They don't even know why.
That's one of the reasons why most of them easily forgot.
Exactly, because they don't see any connection between what is in real life and what is not in real life. Because changing from the one side to the next, you have to zero it out on one side. So you have to talk about the zero principle. So if I have 2x plus 3, write that down, equals 7. 2x plus 3 is equal to 7. And you only show a procedure. They will forget. But one way of teaching that, bring us a balance. Do you know it's a balance in the classroom? They have some little scales that you weigh things on, which has 2 dishes. That's one. Or they have some manufacturer-made balances where you hang things on different places. But you don't even have to have that. Just bring in a straight piece of board with some nails on it and hang things on it until you see it is parallel to the ground. See what I'm saying? To show them that if I take off one thing, because in my house we have a key ring, a key card, where you hang up all the keys that come into the house. One for the back door, one for the front door, my husband's car keys and mine, 4 of them. I look at it, and if the keys are not all hanging, because 2 are heavier than the other, the car keys and the house keys together is more than the key for the back and for the, where do I have that? I don't know what other key that is, but it's on it. You see, it's out of kilter. So you show them, right? You just don't say, move, change side, change sign. You have to talk about the zero principle. You know, if you have $5 and you spend it, and you say having is plus and spending it is minus because you're taking it away from what you have. So, but the trouble is the equal. How would you say equal in English besides saying equal?
Balance, as you said.
The same.
It is the same as.
It is the same as. It is the same as. So what did I say? 2x, what did I say?
2x plus 3.
2x plus 3 is equal to 7. I teach my young children to say 2x plus 3 is the same as 7. So if I'm going to disturb this side, I must disturb the other side, or else the thing will fall apart. Now the amounts have changed, but the balance is preserved because the same treatment you gave to the left-hand side, you gave it to the right-hand side.
That just popped up in my head, you know, the seesaw. Like you have
Exactly. And you know, seesaws, another thing, but I don't know if our children are accustomed to seesaws anymore. I don't see too many of them.
I know children who are. So.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, on a seesaw, the thing in the middle on which the seesaw sits is called the fulcrum. And if you have somebody that is 2 people and they're really far in weight against each other, adjustments have to be made, right? That's right. So therefore, you would have to, you can identify with that to the student, or you can use the balance, or you can use whatever it is, but you have to appeal to them. You can't just say change sides, because they do not know, and it doesn't give them any conceptual understanding. Procedurally, you're correct, but justifying it will give conceptual understanding. Okay. So the thing is that you have, and language I'm going to talk about today. Language is very important, and language is all different kinds of things. So the thing is that they say that children form their opinion about mathematics by age 9. Anybody remember what they were thinking about math at age 9? That is what grade? Fourth grade. Eh?
I think most students at grade 4 actually love our subject is, I think it's only grade 5 and 6 become more complicated because they are less doing experimental math and more abstract material to reason.
That could be true. This is just one finding, so it does negate what you say. So you think that more in the 5th and 6th grade? Yes. So the thing is that this study said by year 9, not grade 9, year 9, 9 years of age, children make up their minds about math.
Well, you know what I've seen already with, okay.
Nobody answered me at what they think in the 4th grade about math. Nobody.
That's what I was supposed to get at with you. You see, for like, they have the literacy test, and I think that's grade 4 that they do that. Right. And I've seen where, you know, kids have done that and they did very well. And when they got to grade 6, they're like, oh, math is the worst and so on. But what I realized, you see, sometimes, especially given the era, I'm going a little aside from the era now with all this technology and so on, and the same child I saw where he was just so caught up by his tablet and all those games, and so he just didn't want to do any practicing of any math. However, he would still get his good math grades, and back in grade 4, and they're saying, didn't have to really do that much practicing. So, but the math grade still doesn't change. So I'm saying, hey, stop saying you hate math, because you are doing, you're just not finding time for it. You're just not finding time for it. But in grade 4, I was thinking that, oh, you see grade 4, from the content of what they're being taught, it's not really that much as what they're being taught like in grade 5 and 6. So it's not that much time that they'll spend on the grade 4, on the work in grade 4. That's what I saw, because I was there saying, it's a matter of them not wanting to practice. Because most of, and I spoke to quite a few of them, and they're like, because you have to just sit down and do so much, you have to be practicing this, you have to be doing more.
Well, grown people don't like to do it either, because they said the problem is too long.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it takes patience, and when I saw it in grade 4, I'm like, we didn't have to do that much.
Yeah, well, you can't. The thing about it is math is sequential, and you cannot teach everything in one.
Exactly.
So,
as you said, it doesn't go up the ladder. It's like,
there are some bright and intelligent people who still don't like math, and I don't know why. But anyway, the thing is that
they're using it
because they're using it something in an applied situation and they don't even realize that they're doing the math.
When a student says they don't like maths, it's not because it's not maths in general, it's a topic in maths because people might explain to the grades and come in some grades. It's like they don't like maths. And when I'm teaching topic, they say, I don't like it's tough, you know. And I don't treat to them and when they get it, they say, oh, maths is easy. And it's like, I think it's a topic two in maths that sometimes turns them off and say they don't like maths.
Well, yes, because if you take it in another context, if you're awake from say 6:30, 7 o'clock, right? Something happened to you at 2 o'clock. That is not positive. You just give up the whole day and say my day was bad. But probably your day wasn't bad at 7 and 8 and 9 o'clock. It is one thing. So you go back and you say, well, what made your day bad at 7? What made your day bad at 8? And you realize, oh, you know, all is not lost. All is not lost.
And so when I look at the grade, because when I look at the content for grade 4, I'm like, many of these things, you know, they memorize some of these things and they don't have to do that much of the applying and so on. So I'm saying, oh, so they're spending so much more time after grade 4 on math than before. So I'm just saying,
yeah, well, I don't know what goes on there, but the thing is that the situation with math is that the stronger your foundation is, the better you will do as you come up. Now, if you do not know the math and you have some intrinsic motivation as a child to say, I'm going to learn this. I know there was one girl at our school when I was away. She needed a question answered, and if you took the wings of the morning and fly to the uttermost part, you have to answer her question. She just hounded you because she was motivated intrinsically to do the math. Unfortunately, we do not have many of those. She was Serena Wong or something like that, but she's always asking a math question, always asking for help, always, and at different times. And we had a small school, so she had access. But the thing is that some people are intrinsically motivated and they say, I'm going to do that, and they will do it. But there are some bright kids who do not want to do math, and if they know how much math they're doing, they will be surprised themselves. But there's a term called dyscalculia. D-Y-S-C-A-L-C-U-L. I jumped one syllable. Just A, dyscalculia. D-Y-S-C-A-L-C-U-L-A.
Could you repeat, please?
D-Y-S-C-A-L-C-U-L-A. Dyscalculia. It is used to describe a learning disability. Remember last week we were talking about math anxiety? They can do everything else. And as you hear math, their demeanor changes, affect, and they have an experience.
Is it IA or A? Is it dyscalculia or LA?
La, L-A. D-Y-S as in Sam, C-U-L,
Yeah, but
C-A-L-C-U-L-A, La.
yeah, but I'm researching it and it's LIA. Math dyslexia. Is that what you're talking about?
Dyscalculia.
Okay.
It's used to describe a learning disability. Associated with this condition is language difficulties. Sometimes they do not understand what's there. And sometimes they're so anxious about it that it diminishes their available energy to do this stuff. Learning styles is another factor. Language difficulties and math anxiety are associated with the condition. Sometimes in this calculator, they cannot retrieve the facts. They do not understand, so they do not understand the procedure, so they're not able to apply it. Math uses specialized language. From my personal experience, I make sure that I do not introduce any topic with some high-sounding name, something that I've never heard about before, and so on. What I do, I try to break it down in something that they can understand. Specialized language. If they cannot understand, if they cannot comprehend the written word, and our children in Jamaica have what is called limited English proficiency. Limited English proficiency. Because they speak patois and they practice and speak patois 85–90% of the time, and when they reach the exams, they don't know what these words are and that kind of a thing. So, now failure in mathematics. If you have math anxiety, you don't do the work, you fail this, and continued failure is not very encouraging to the student or to anybody. If everything you try, you don't succeed, soon you become discouraged. So that is a warning to teacher that we should allow our kids to achieve some success. In that, if we have taught a topic, presented and developed the topic and so on, we are to give assessment items, and I'm going to talk about assessment as well. We are to give assessment at different levels, and we spoke about that to some degree last time. So you develop a negative attitude if you're forever failing. Every time you get a paper, you're already marking X's or something and you get a low grade out of it, it becomes too much, and then you your attitude could become negative towards the subject area. And if you are not succeeding, you try to avoid. So sometimes they have a problem to do. They have to sharpen their pencil 4 times. They have to go to the bathroom. They have to do this thing. Is fearful avoidance of what it is that they are supposed to do.
What's the name for that one? What do you call that, the avoidance?
I said fearful avoidance. Because if they experience failure on a number of occasions, they have, they develop this attitude, you know, no matter what I do, I don't succeed. No matter what I do, I don't succeed. Time after time. So develop what I call fearful avoidance of the situation when it comes to working in the math class. Now, you have to take these things into consideration. As I tell you, you need to give opportunities for most of the students to experience some success in what you're doing. You do not give the first problem as an experiment. You know, what is giving the first, who can describe what is when you give the first problem? See if they can do this. See if they can build on what I just taught. Test what you teach. Test what you teach. And then you can go to something else, because there is going to be Miss Bright Spark and Mr. Bright Spark in your class who can deal with the more challenging questions. But the thing is that with the student who is trying and the ones you don't want to discourage anybody from doing math. And so, as I said before, if you fail and you fail and you fail and you fail, I have to come to this class because that is in my schedule. You come there and you find all kinds of reasons why you cannot get ahead. Gender issues are in the class and social issues are in the class. Gender issues. Seems as if when people are in primary school, they don't care if you're a boy or girl, they're going to get their work right. They want to get it right. They're not thinking about any gender issues. But some studies have recorded that the girls tend to sort of recede from doing math to the best of their ability by their own choice. And sometimes it has to do with the teacher in the classroom, because the teacher might be carrying certain ideas, you know, that girls are not going to end up in math-related things anyway, so let them ask the boys. And the boys get the limelight, and girls sit down and wait until the class ends. Sometimes that happens. Teachers call upon boys more often than girls. It has been noted. In the math class, yes. So be careful. Be careful, okay? Berry claims that sometimes some children receive mathematical instruction that fall below the required standards. And that is a big issue in the primary years, because the teachers are teaching all the subject and they can encroach on the math period because they're teaching something that they like integrated studies, or they're teaching, I don't know what. But anyway, they can let the time encroach. They do not make the class changes so that math gets its full allotted time. Yes? Now, there are other factors too. They're tracking. Some schools track the students. If you get between this grade and this grade on your diagnostic, you go here. If you get in the next band, you go there. And sometimes it's very hard to escape those tracks. It looks like from you're sentenced to be in that track until you leave school. Sometimes girls claim that they cannot take the higher math courses, or they're not encouraged to do so. Sometimes if the girls would even do well, they just don't opt for them. They just don't opt for those courses. Teachers, believe it or not, help to foster this kind of gender gap. Teachers believe that this one is not going to do math in any way, so they have poor instructional delivery. They lack the resources so that children can achieve to the best of their ability. They have to develop an understanding of cultural learning styles. I don't know in Jamaica, I hear people, a lot of them say that they don't do math, and they say it, you know, like they're advertising the fact. They don't say they don't know English or they don't know a verb or anything like that. But in math, they take power to advertise that they're not doing well. And sometimes it passes on to the student. You know, if I don't pass math, some people say, my mother is going to kill me. And some people, they just take what they get, and when they go on the math, you're doing well in this, you're doing well in this. I didn't do well in math either, so, you know, so we have to guard against that. Beliefs and attitudes is what we're talking about. Beliefs and attitudes that get reinforced at home, the teacher helps it along, and the child ends up not being proficient.
One question. When you see, like, as you just said, at home, regarding like parents, for instance, say I've seen where a student did succeed, you know, got one the distinction for math and two for English. However, in the high school, only like 10 students got a 1 and like 4 students got a distinction or something like that they were explaining. And you know, it's like her father, he wasn't, you know, some parents were like super surprised that their child passed math, and her father was in no way or form surprised. He was actually saying, there should have been a 1 for English too, you know?
Yeah.
And they're saying, interesting, which means, you know, never don't allow your child to think that, hey, maths is gonna be the one that you need to pass, because you're basically kind of instilling something in them that's okay.
I don't think the father was saying that. He said,
no, I'm not saying
think,
no. I'm just saying some parents, when they're there, you know, just instilling it that, hey, you need to. But the father he didn't act all surprised. But
my mother wasn't surprised when I passed my exams either, because she says to me, what else you have to do? Do you have a job?
Do you have a job? Comment afterwards, you know, 1 for math. You know, after he was like, math and English, both of them.
I agree with the man. I agree with him, because what happens, my name came out in the paper back in the dark ages when I went to school, and I remember I came home with the paper, and my mother was fixing dinner, and she didn't miss a beat. She said, what else you have to do? She said, what else do you have to do? Do you have a job? She said, people have jobs, must do well at their jobs. The people in school must do well in school. And my mother didn't miss a beat. She didn't hug, she didn't pray, she didn't do anything. And I said, look at that name, it's in the gleaner. She said, then what else you have to do? That's where you're supposed to be. Because you don't have a job.
So that's what I'm saying. Right. That's different, you know, because when I see, that's what I'm saying with some parents or some guardians, when they're there telling the child, listen, if you never math, and when you're there, you're instilling it in them that, okay, that means math is the one that is hardest, or so it's like, that's just.
No, it's not the hardest. It's not the hardest. It's the fact where it is on the value scale, where it is on the value paradigm.
I know, but I'm just saying, you know, sometimes.
It's cultural. I mean, everybody out there, every next person out there having some negative things.
Towards that, yeah.
You know, and we try to pass it. It's passed on. So I guess that's why, you know.
No, but it's value. And remember how curriculum is created because of what the society values. Then the Ministry of Education in Jamaica goes even more and said, we will pay for math and English, and everybody can, you know, you take whatever else you need.
Like a necessity. So
yes.
It's coming from.
I was just saying that sometimes because
I don't know what you're saying. I really don't. What are you saying in one sentence?
Really and truly. You see with some, like, just not math alone, just like other subjects, you have a child doing 7 subjects or 8, and you are only preaching math. And you know, when you're there preaching on math,
but it's all actually society.
No, that's what Miss, I agree with you. That's
so what you're disagreeing with?
I was not disagreeing.
What you're saying?
Not
with me.
No, I wasn't disagreeing. I was actually saying, you know, I with that last thing that you said about, you know, that I didn't have it written down, but when that last thing you said, I was saying, you know, using the example I just said to you that I wanted to give you an example.
Yes, we were talking about girls, but I'm saying that people in the society, in your home and at school, reinforces the idea that it's okay, you don't have to be quite there mathematically because I didn't do very well and so on in some cases. But some parents are on the other end of the spectrum, like, because my mother said to me, you know, I have 5 bright children, but I cannot read your report card until it's all A's, because that's where I stopped in school. I stopped at the first letter of the alphabet. But that was a big statement she was making, that she wanted the higher stuff, you know, what there is.
Yes, she wants.
You can do it.
You can do it. So you have the potential. So she just wants to see the
So my mother, she didn't stop. My brother has a PhD in physical chemistry. 10 people in the world have a degree like that. But she just said, There is no hardship in it because you are not working. You do not have any other thing to do. But anyway, some parents will actually be in league with the student. If she gets a C in math, that's the other end, where they say, you did well because I didn't do very well in math. So sometimes they do that. But researchers also influence the teaching and learning of mathematics. Some of the main theories which influence belief are attributed to Thorndike. Get these names because you're going to be writing the paper on it. Thorndike, Jean Piaget, Brunner, and Vygotsky. Those people are some that you can research. I didn't say it. I'm not giving an exhaustive list. I am just looking at some of them. Drill and practice, stimulus response, in other words, is a theory developed by Thorndike. He claims that behaviors that are rewarded will be repeated, and those that go without reward will tend to disappear. So he said drill and practice, drill and practice, drill and practice. All right? He applied this strategy to arithmetic. This gave birth to drill and practice. That is, the learners acquire the information in parts. So, give you this to do 15 more of them. I'm going to ask you, give you 15 more flashcards or whatever. Thorndike's theory did not make any differentiation between doing and understanding. And that is how Jamaican, Jamaican education was delivered back in the Dark Ages. When you were told, you were asked to give a response, and you practice so you can give that same response to that same time question over and over again. Dewey and Gestalt psychologists objected to the idea that learning is only influenced by external factors. You know, I give you stimulus, you give me a response. Stimulus, response, stimulus, response. Dewey and the Gestalt psychologists. It says that external stimuli is the only thing that causes learning, but that is not true. We believe that the interest and motivation of the learner, as I said, if you are intrinsically motivated, you might break barriers because you want to know something about mathematics and you surpass everything that anybody could, yes. But that is not from the outside, that is from the inside. He was convinced that learning was based on personal development. He saw that learning were given in bits. And by the time I give you this fact and this fact, you might not even see it, but we will finish a structure in the end. That the parts, he supported the view that Thorndike supported the view that if you get the parts and the parts and the parts, eventually you will have the whole. But some people do not see that. As I say, you get this lesson today, you swat it. You get this lesson tomorrow, you swat it, and you never see the connection between the two of them. Piaget is another significant person who influenced this whole theory about learning. He rejected Thorndike's stimulus response. So Thorndike said, externally, I give you something, you respond to it, and if I reinforce it and say thank you and praise you and give you some rewards that are not more tangible, you will learn. But Piaget rejected that view. He posited 3 basic principles: assimilation, accommodation, and equilibrium. And he has 4 stages. The first stage for Piaget is from birth to 8 months. The child develops actions that are rewarding. Like if the baby cries, everybody run. What you run with? What you run with when the baby's crying? You run to see if they have,
To see if the,
babies.
to see if the baby is okay.
Yes.
You're on to see if it's okay.
You run with a bottle of water, a bottle of juice, or a bottle of milk, or you run to change the baby, so they get rewarded when they make noise, right? That is called the sensory motor stage. The sensory motor stage. So I know if I cry, I'm going to get some attention. Sensory motor stage. Because they don't have language, but they speak clearly when they cry. You come and you check. Yes. All right. Then we have what we call the second stage is the pre-operational stage. Pre-operational stage. That stage is 18 months to 4 years.
And the sensory one was from when to when? Could you repeat that, please?
The first stage is from birth to 8 months.
Thank you.
And you got the second stage, the pre-operational stage, from 18 months to 4 years. It's almost ready to go to kindergarten. During this stage, the child develops the power of representation using words and object manipulation. So now they can talk. Now they're talking, they're doing stuff. And by the time they reach 2 years, they have their own tablet. So they can do a lot of stuff. The third stage is the concrete operational. That goes up to 12 years old. In this period, the child develops logical, mathematical thought and starts to think about operations in mathematics. That's the third stage, concrete operational. Think about operations in math. Beyond 12 years, we enter into the fourth stage, which is formal operational. The child is able to reason. They can ask, what happens if? They can generalize concept, right? They know that in order to reach school early, they have to do certain things. Probably they might find that generally they get there on time if they leave, just like us, adults. You know, if I leave my house to come to school for 10 o'clock, I can leave at 9. If I have to reach school at 9 o'clock, I have to leave home 7:30 if I'm to have no anxieties coming across town. So they work things out. Yes. But sometimes the timing is not the only thing because there are other factors. Like, you know, with the traffic, you crawl down the hill and you crawl up to here. Yes, so if I don't leave 7:30 for 9, I cannot get to her. But if I leave 9 at home, I can get to you by 10. So it's a half an hour difference. So it's a time factor, but you know, the time is taken is affected by the traffic patterns. So Piaget took a developmental approach. But do we think that that is pure? It's purely developmental. By 12 is supposed to be doing all these things? What is it affected by? You're molded and shaped by other events in your life, right?
Right, that's true.
Yeah, so developmentally, he said the brain functioning is so on, but you'd have to have an environment where you can thrive and focus on, you know, whatever you're learning. And some people's developmental stages get short-circuited because of events in their lives. And we're going to talk about some of those events. So readiness to learn takes place in stages according to, that's the bottom line for Piaget. If you're 12, you're doing this, right? And his work is very important at the time when it was his heyday because it affected significantly development of ideas for learning math, how children learn mathematics.
What's his name, please?
Piaget. Piaget.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So what did he mention about boys? Because they always say like boys learn maths faster than girls or something like that. So is there any reality in that?
Well, no, but the society sort of forces, you know, certain beliefs and the actions behind those beliefs. So boys, for instance, they will say, you're going to do math, you're going to do math, you're going to do math. And probably they don't say the same thing to children. And as I mentioned earlier, teachers might ask more questions to the boys in the class than the girls in the math class. So there are other things that influence your learning of mathematics. When I was in primary school, I had a teacher who would come to school early in the morning before everybody. And he would, because he believed in drill and practice. And he would write on the board. Those days you didn't have the machine to, you know, you could just go this, or we couldn't afford it anyway if we had it. And so he would write off in the perfect handwriting all the questions in math. And he would write on both sides of the board because it was freestanding. And he would leave us to do these problems. He would go talk to somebody or do something while we do the problems. And then we had to leave the book on his desk to be marked. And it was not until I was grown, past high school, that I realized that math has a structure and identity and everything on its own. I just learned by drill and practice. And so I didn't know names, I didn't know labels, I didn't know anything. I know when you say area of circle, or I know when you say long division, because you have practice and practice and practice. But some of those things are not applicable now because of the way mathematics is phrased and the number of algorithms that we are using that come from the mathematics. We want to have some kind of understanding. In Sunday's paper, there's a guy who was from Jamaica, and he lived in some parts in the country. He's been called to Silicon Valley. And he is going to be dancing. He is so happy about his situation. Now we turn to another theorist by the name of Brunner.
Miss, before you go on, I really understand what you says there, but earlier you had mentioned that there's the differentiate between doing and understanding maths, but what you did was a lot of practicing and drilling. So, but at first you said that some teacher mark not differentiating between doing and understanding as if it was negative, but you talk now as if it was positive. So
well, I just talk about what happened to me. I think that probably at that time, the model was that. But it has been found out that in that kind of setting, relatively few people go on to do mathematics.
Okay.
It didn't hurt me. But the thing is, I didn't know that math was something you're supposed to be afraid of. That's what I didn't know at the time. I didn't get the memo. What did I do? Right? I didn't know that I was not supposed to like math, because I'm supposed to like everything in school because I didn't have a job, according to my mother. And then what happened, they tried to provide what you needed. They tried to provide what you needed. And this lady, this is a joke, but this lady had from low socioeconomic situations in Jamaica here. But you know, she tried to make big sacrifices for her daughter to go to school. And then one of the teachers in the school picked up on the mother's vision and sort of shepherded the child and gave her extra lessons and so forth for free. And she got a 1 in math. And the mother didn't understand the 1, because the mother think 1 is the lowest number. And that, you know, you should get more. So when she got the 1 and the girl brought home this thing, she said, all the sacrifices I make and you get a 1? And she started on the girl.
Oh gosh.
Put her to a pulp. And somebody came and said, no. That is the best mark you can get.
Wow.
Realized, because she made so much sacrifice.
Yes.
Sacrifice. And this child got a 1. But she think that a 10 is better than a 1. She didn't understand the marking.
Yes, the marking scheme. Yes. Oh my. Wow.
Started on the girl. I mean, fire. And the girl was running, and the neighbors had to come and say, no. This is not it. She has a 1. She has the best mark that you can get.
Right.
So sometimes
The girl didn't understand the marking.
Yes, but
Explain it.
do you think she's going to listen?
The mother,
She understands that 10 is more than 1.
But sometimes the parents not going to listen to the child and then take the child.
That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. She said, no, mommy, that is a good grade. She said, 1? What? What's 10? You know, that is what she was saying. All she knows is
close to 0.
Bruno's approach the theories of learning focused on language, communication, we'll talk about language before the day ends, and instruction. How these impact the development of a knowledge base. Bruner's ideas are closely aligned with the thinking that the most, listen to this is key thing, that the most complex processes can be tailored, language, that every child could understand and learn its elements with the use of appropriate language. You know, some teachers can only speak up there in the abstract. He says, any person in a learning environment can learn what you're saying if you use it, correct, and appropriate language. That was his claim. So he says that the instruction content should be structured to the maturity of the learners. Yes. He said that you should be able to walk with kings and the common man. So you should be able to speak to all of them at a structure and a maturity of the person. Like this lady, she was from humble circumstances, and when she studied and came back, her parents couldn't understand her. And the father got very upset. But the thing is that you should be able to break it down to the student to give a thorough understanding of what you are doing. The last person we're going to be talking about is Vygotsky. His claim that learning in children takes place when the student is assisted to create new knowledge based on prerequisite skills that they already know. Vygotsky believes that learning takes place when the student is assisted to create new knowledge. You just don't tell them and model for them and tell them and model for them and tell them and model for them. You're providing a different kind of stimulus. He considered 2 levels of performance. If you have a child coming into your school at the 7th grade, that child is not blank. That child knows some mathematics. There might be some gaps. There might be areas where the understanding is not quite clear, so they have some misconceptions. But a child is not blank. I was teaching a little girl. I gave her some lessons after school, just because in America you cannot take money. It's not a business. It's a help session. And she started to cry. And I said, why are you crying? Because I got a little bit concerned. I don't know what I was doing to her. She said, you know, I didn't understand this until today. Today is the first time I'm understanding this concept. The thing is, sometimes if you go in and your language is of such, the vocabulary that you use, the activities that you give to the students, what you're modeling for them, and you're just talking and modeling because you know what you're doing, and talking and modeling and talking and modeling. Some people in the room might be left out. So he's claiming that his model is that a child learning takes place when he's assisted to create new knowledge. And by that he means, I am in the classroom. I have some knowledge. I'm working on a concept. I'm working on an idea. I'm working on a problem. I have enough information and skills to reach this point in the problem. So that means I'm working from a basis of some knowledge that I've already stored. He says that you can assist the person to create new knowledge, because what he wants is the child to be perturbed, to be troubled by what he hears or she hears. That this doesn't quite fit, like last week when we were looking at the different scenarios, it doesn't quite fit. So what happens is the child now, you have to get the child where the child can attach it to what he knows or she knows already because you have explained it. So they say, yes, that could be a possibility. And then, you know, with dialogue and talking and you're assisting because you have more knowledge than the child for this particular content of what you're doing. So you see the difference with, so Vygotsky is the one that is closest to the constructivist idea that we spoke about last week. Remember they say that the child learns in community. So the child can learn in a group. The child can learn in a group with the teacher assisting. So the child, but the thing is though, is not the teacher just sitting up there and talking and handing out the information. It's not like that, like that, giving out the stimulus and the child responds. Okay? So we have that situation. Now, what he calls that, where a child has reached this far in the process, based on his understanding and prerequisite skills, he calls that zone of proximal development. Zone of proximal development, ZPD. The child has now reached a zone, right, in close proximity to some development ideas that he can, higher ideas that he can attach to what he knows already, and you just help him over. Like a child is getting up and they're just learning to walk, you give them a hand. That is the picture I conjure up, where I get you over this particular, oh, so this is, yeah, that kind of a thing. And the child can go on now to say, I understand it, I can put it in my skill bank. Do we understand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so zone of proximal development, and I'm going to read something from this book, which is called the socio-cultural perspective. Why we call it the socio-cultural perspective? Because he says you learn in community, you learn in dialogue, you learn in somebody say, clarifying something for you. You learn that way. Much better than if you give me 10 problems to do. The term sociocultural is used to describe a family of theories whose origins can be traced to the work of Vygotsky. Since then, his ideas have explored and extended to many other researchers for the reviews of sociocultural research. We can go to other places. That is what I mean, that in the paper, if you see something like this, right, attached to somebody, you can go explore even further what is the sociocultural perspective. So it is something that he has conjured up based on the work that he has done. So if you want to get a better understanding of it, you can go research that. Individual learning occurs in social interaction. We said that already. You have memory, you're presented with a concept, and you reason your way to the point where you understand it, and you can put it in your memory bank. Do we understand? Okay. He also claimed that mental processes are mediated by cultural tools, such as language, writing, counting, algebra, symbols, and system, because we're going to talk about language communication, because you know that mathematics has its own set of symbols. And sometimes the word in English is parallel to it, and sometimes it's not. For instance, if I use the word union, right? In an English class, probably union would have a different meaning from the union in the math class, but they're spelled the same way, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is what happens. So he says language, writing, systems for counting, algebraic symbols, diagrams, drawing tools, all those things are in your environment in a social context. Okay, you can have physical models and so on, that the mediation transform people's thinking by the time you finish talking. Like somebody will say, you will say, you know, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Like somebody came to me, a young fella, and he told me in very gleeful tones he's going to buy a car. He has some money in his hand. So I said, how much are you going to buy the car for? He said, I have, like you'd say, I have $2,000 in US. I have $2,000. I'm going to have a car. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So I said, do you know that buying a car is only one stage of owning and maintaining a car? So then I said, did you consider the maintenance? Before maintenance, did you consider insurance? Did you consider, you know, licensing? Did you consider all those things? He said, no, I was going to buy the car for the amount of money I have. I said, you'd have to park it. You see what I'm saying?
Working, you know?
But he's working, but
I'm just saying.
yeah. But the thing is that
They never count the cost.
he didn't count the cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's at that point where he has the idea that he can that he could buy a car. He's of the age he can sign on the bottom line. He has enough money for the down payment. But that's only the beginning of the story. So somebody comes and says to him, you want to consider these other things. So when he puts it in his bank now, he might have to change the date that he wants to buy the car. Because there are some things that you have to do to get the car on the road. You have to change it, you have to insure it in your name, you have to license it in your name, and all those things are costs associated with the acquisition. The acquisition is just the first step. And so therefore that is what happened. So Vygotsky is saying, people in your social group can help you, people in your the trappings of the classroom, like, you know, things you can manipulate, and so will help you, and you will see what is going on. Like if you want to talk about the equation and solving the equation, you don't have to have an equation in front of you. If you have a balance beam thing, you can just pick off things off it and see what happens if you don't do it the same thing on either side. So that ingrains in your head the conceptual understanding that you should be making the same movement on each side of the equation to maintain the equality. The zone of proximal development explained our child's interaction with an adult or more capable student pair might awaken the mental functions that has not yet matured. So working alone, you don't get that input. Working in a group, it could be very helpful, or if you're working with the teacher. And last week we talked about scaffolding. So scaffolding is one that you give somebody support to get over. Like I'm taking the hand of a child to help him to stand. That is physical, but the other one is mental. Because you change your mental structures when you begin to put something else there. Because you, as I said before, have some skills. And if somebody presents something to you that doesn't seem quite to fit, you're not going to attach it to your skill bag until you can make sense of it. Okay? All right. Now, the participation in joint activities. So you can see the difference in shades of the different theorists and their claims. Vygotsky is the social man, right? Piaget is the developmental man, right? Thorndike is a stimuli man. You see what I'm saying? He's saying these things. And probably there's a grain of truth from each of them that contributes to your learning. So that is something to think about. So if something is beyond the reach and you help the person over, that's the zone. They get to the zone where they need some help to move to the next place. In groups, in concert with somebody else, in talking and so on. We have those situations when we're talking about that. So I've covered a few of the findings of the learning theorists. The world is your oyster. The internet is somewhere where you can go and find some others in order to do your paper. And we know when the paper is due. The 10th of April, the paper is due. I think, is that what you said? Yes.
You said 20th last time.
20th? 20th of April. Okay. 20th of April.
Yes.
When the other one is due. That's what.
And the journals, did you set the date yet?
How much?
You said that you wanted us to do the different theorists have our own say actually. No?
That's right. You're going to summarize, like as I said before, Thorndike is a stimuli man. So Piaget is the developmental man. Vygotsky is the social man. And then you are going, and like we said, the socio-cultural implications. If you see something like that, or you can go research that as well as associated with the theorists that you're talking about.
So you want us to summarize all the theories that we're going to use.
You're to know what they're saying in the main.
And
You're
then-
to know what they're saying.
Right. So we summarize and then we state our
Yes, your take on it,
on each
and
of them.
you know, you can, but the thing is, I want you to become a part of it so you know what is going on with these different theories and what they claim how children learn. All right, we know that these kinds of things that we were talking about in terms of the main ideas of the theories are not pure and clear. As I said, there might be intersections meeting one theory with another in some way. Now, we know that this child, according to Piaget, is to do this at this age and can do that at the other age and so on. But as I said earlier, there are other factors that contribute to a child's learning. And some people think that in the early years, the parents, it's true, are the first teachers of the child. The parents are the first teachers of the child. Sometimes you are not going to be teaching mathematics per se, but you can teach things like attributes. And I say attributes. Let me call my son's name. George, bring me the red book from the top of the table. Red is an attribute. See what I'm saying? So I'm teaching him to discriminate between all the other books and bring me the red book. So you, in your language with children at an early age, you can be building. You can be building certain things because you know if I give you a plus sign and I give you a multiplication sign, you're supposed, and they're properly made, you're supposed to be able to distinguish between them. So you're starting that discrimination process, you're starting the attribute process. Bring me the thickest book on the table or the heaviest book or whatever. So you put those things in your language when you're talking to students because it matters. And so therefore, bring me the book. Which one? That one, that one, that one. You see what I'm saying? It's a whole different attitude that you bring to it. And so when you're giving children instruction, you give them in short, concise sentences. But you can use an adjective or you can use an adverb. Do not run to the water fountain to wash your hands for lunchtime. Right? I could say that. But maybe the child knows run already. Suppose I say, walk at a normal pace. They might not know that. But if I say, walk at a normal pace, do not run, they might see, you see what I'm saying? They're learning. They're learning. Because walking at a normal pace must be different from running. Yes. So therefore, we look at that. And so this idea associated with environment in the home, environment, because people talk in Jamaica about uptown and downtown, right? This lady, she was a, what you call a person at JC. You know, she swept the classrooms and stuff like that. Janitor. And her son passed for JC. And they tried to get another job for her somewhere because she was afraid that they would, you know, ridicule her son to know that his mother swept the classroom.
So they gave the mother another job?
Yes.
Oh.
So
That's nice.
they could even exchange and probably do better for the workers anyway in terms of proximity to home and all of that. But her son got through for JC and they gave her another job because they were afraid of the socioeconomic attachments that they would make to such a child. Yes. Did you see the paper where this girl was killed somewhere? She was pregnant and she was killed. From Donald Quarry, yes. Yeah. Westmoreland. Yes, that is the Donald Quarry one. But I didn't know that people still had picking at trees.
You didn't know this, or?
That people still had picking at trees. I think everything.
But they're in high schools. There are even some schools. Miss, how long did you go away for?
Longer than you're alive.
Miss, when did you come back?
2006. Okay, so socioeconomics, they say, play a part in achievement in mathematics.
You do what?
Low socioeconomic status contributes to underachievement in mathematics.
Okay. Thank you.
It says that's a significant factor.
I am not so sure.
Well, you know, sometimes it is and sometimes it's not, because as I said before, if the child is intrinsically motivated, you can get to where you're going to get based that defy the statistics, that defy the research. So because a lot of people have come from low socioeconomic, but low socioeconomic stuff is could be one of the contributing factors, but it also could be a motivator. I didn't say it was. I didn't say it was. It can be a motivating factor, because you see me, I am not going to end up at this place. And so people have to get out of here, and education is one of the things that it can move you significantly up the socioeconomic ladder. Okay? But sometimes it works against them. Like I know in Denham Town School, as I said, some children can't go to school in those depressed areas because of gang activity and that kind of a stuff. Sometimes I went to a school to inspect it, and there was a child there that wasn't in school for 2-3 weeks, especially in primary school, because if the mother is not motivated or someone in the family is not motivated, probably the child cannot get to school on their own or have what it takes to get to school. So those kinds of things can play a part. The socioeconomic situation is not a guarantee that you're not going to succeed, but sometimes it stops you from succeeding. Now, you have situations too where if there is say the mother dies and you are the biggest one, like 16 or 15, you sort of become the mother to the younger siblings, and that might stop you from going to school or somewhere like that, okay? The children who do not have power to get to school on their own, the means, the wherewithal, they sometimes can be affected. But there are students who overcome these things. And some people are later in the game, like I heard about this fellow. I think he went to Excelsior in the evening and he wasn't registered. He just went. He just went, and the teacher allowed him to sit in class. And he was working somewhere, and it was with one of the Chinese people who have shops or something. And the employer, the man, heard that he wanted to go to school. And then afterwards, because he would borrow people's books, he would say, let me read the book while you do this, or let me do that. And he would just go and sit in the classes. And this man said, you want to go to school? And he said, yes, because I've been going. But it does not count for anything because he's not registered, he's not in the system. And the man began to pay. And he got in and reached where he wanted to reach. So the thing is that there are a number of times that socioeconomics can affect the student, and teachers can make sure that that happens. Somebody is coming from a low socioeconomic, sometimes teachers give up on them. Sometimes teachers do. And so we find that it's not predictive, but it can impact the child negatively. Because if you are 22 and you're on your own and you're working as, I know this girl, she was working as a street sweeper thing, but street sweeper is early in the morning, and she went to heart and, you know, improve her skills, and then she did that and she did that, you know, until she got to a better level and a better level. So the thing is, but heart now, I think their standards for acceptance have increased. Like they want subjects now and that kind of stuff.
Even like at Excelsior, quite a few of those staff members there, they stand from ancillary staff, even especially this particular one. He was a groundsman. So while he was there, he enrolled in the degree program and well, couldn't really afford it, but they made some special arrangements.
They should let him go free.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
They should let him go
yeah,
free.
and now he's a sister. Yeah.
Because he wouldn't reach it otherwise. Because what they're paying him, $5,000 a week, and probably he's married with 2 children.
Yeah. And I know he's a system administrator.
There we go. There we go.
Like I've seen cases at hotels too where I've heard of persons like in the hotels, like someone who started off, you know, after high school, and he's brilliant, he's smart, but parents couldn't afford. He started as a hotel washing dishes, and he's currently a chef.
But somebody like that, what does it cost Excelsior for this man to sit in class? If he sat in class and they didn't know,
yeah, and he's just one of the few. Because he just got promoted. Because when he finished his degree, they know that he promoted.
Yes.
But there are other persons there that even a lady, she used to clean the bathrooms, and they know they allowed her to.
Yes.
And I know she's working in the accounts department.
There we go. There we go. Very nice.
She said that a matter that they are not smart.
It's associative. Yes. Yeah. And then when you're an adult, you sometimes have adult responsibility.
Exactly.
Probably like children and rent and mortgage, and you have to have a way to see the doctor when you need to.
Even that particular guy, when he was enrolled full-time, and he was a groundsman full-time.
Yeah.
So he used to have to go to classes in his groundsman clothes, and they allowed it. And a lot of the lecturers assisted him along the way.
Needs a helping hand. Needs a helping hand. Give him 2. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. Right? Now, so a student comes in who has not heard anything but patois in their life, right? You have a job to do in addition to teaching them the math content. Because you're going to put up words up there that they haven't heard. You're going to put words up there. But remember that Bruna says, I should be able to say to you in language that you understand. Not your final destination, but in the meantime, you're shaping. You're shaping because they have to understand the CXC language. Okay? All right. So we have to know then that the persons who come into our environment have the potential to reach places that we couldn't even guess. Who knows that they were looking into the face of a prime minister when they're looking at some of the prime ministers that we have had? Who knows? Or who knew at the time that they were looking in the face of a prime minister? Eh?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that I'm going to repeat what's one.
All right. We record your name. We're looking for it in lights. Okay? All right. The behavior changes that we need in terms of language usage, in terms of behavior, in terms of increased proficiency, it all has to be on the front burner. Somebody has to be thinking about it. The teacher, whoever is supposed to be thinking about it. Like this lady who beat that child to get a 1, she could not help the child with homework. She could not help the child with a number of things, right? But she was ever present in the child's life, low socioeconomic or not, because she made sacrifices to put that child in a place where she could be in attendance on a regular basis. She would not look less than, you know, so that students could get after your blouse dirty or something like that. She put out what she could. Yes. And so therefore the child achieved with the help. And you know what happened? People are people all over. But do you know that some people, if they just see some glimmer of hope, they will, because I know, have you ever heard about Dr. Polly Bowles Howell? She's big in special ed. And she gets all kinds of accolades and things all the time. Polly Bowles Howell. She has made 4 teachers of all the helpers that she has gotten. She saw the potential and she said, and she made 4 teachers out of her kitchen. And so she just got recognized by JTA at the hotel beside the Pegasus there, Courtly or whatever. Yeah. Because she just saw potential in people and she said, not happening. You are going to be better than this domestic work that you are doing. Somebody has to do it, but it's not you. Because you show me that, you know, you can make it. She made 4 teachers out of our domestic help. And that's somebody I know personally.
You mean there used to be domestic help at her home? And she,
yes, and she said, I see that you have something beyond this. And she made 4 teachers out of her kitchen. So if somebody gets a help, some people only need a help. Somebody only need for you to turn them around and face them in the right direction.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
It's no different.
That's true.
It's no different. Yes, just turn themselves around. You can give praise.
A detour, but then
yes, but that's why it's called a detour, because you can get back on track. If you're on a detour, you can get back on track. Only thing, it takes a longer time, because if you left tracks for 5 kilometers, it's really 10, because you have to come back. So it might take a longer time. But this guy telling you about how his employer, paid his way. He was just determined. He said, I'm going to learn something. It might not lead to a degree, but I'm going to learn something. And he went and sat in the class without speaking to any administrative body and excelled it until they found out who he was. So the areas that, when we are looking at children in school, we're not to give up on them. Even if they're in a low socioeconomic level, they might not have the right anything. But once they're present their body, we need to pay them some attention. And we can afford to give a little extra hint here or there. I've never seen a place where lunchtime is so sacred as in Jamaica. I've never seen it. Do you know that when I was teaching, I didn't know what was lunchtime from what was lunchtime from nothing. Sometimes it's 4 and 5 o'clock before I eat the first meal of the day. You know, I can do that. If I do not start eating in the morning, I can stay the whole day. If I start eating, I cannot. I get up. Like yesterday, I didn't eat until about 4 o'clock. For the first, since Saturday night. And it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't bother me.
Well, wow.
Okay. Now, I don't know.
Well, I had a piece where I lost appetite because of my condition. So my doctor is like, don't you dare. So
but the thing is that
I don't risks anymore.
I don't even call it a risk. It's something that I can do without.
And it doesn't bother you. Unplanned.
I'm glad.
Fast and pray.
I fast and pray, but I mean, it's unplanned.
I've seen a person that, especially they get up and just start working, doing work.
Yeah.
And when they finish work, it's like 3 o'clock. They're like, oh, I didn't keep my morning.
Excellent for them.
All right, now.
I used to be able to do that.
No matter how you think you're going to do ability grouping or tracking, you're going to have differences in the classroom. So I'm going to talk about lesson plans on another date. And we will talk about how you address the different abilities in your classroom. If a child is in a low socioeconomic, who hasn't got many opportunities, mother has 5 children, they have to take some of the responsibility for parenting and all of that. You are going to have to plan for that child as a part of your class. And it has to do with, you have to do language training. You have to make it to the point where they can understand it. You have to be sure that your classroom environment does not ridicule anybody. That is just out the window. That is not tolerated. 0 tolerance for that kind of a thing. And we'll talk about how you get your classroom to be in that stage, because no matter how you track, within the track, you're going to have differences. Okay? All right, what's the other thing? Language. Language. How many ways do we speak? Language and mathematics. Do we only speak with voice?
No.
Facial expression.
Facial expression, that's correct. Hand movements, right? Gesturing. Yeah, gesticulation, right? We use language in
And we even have different types of manipulatives now in the classroom. It's like a teaching tool. You know.
That's right. It speaks to you. Like, for instance, you know that wood can speak. Like you're in the wood shop and you're making a chair and you have 4 different measurements, different by slight amounts. The chair is not steady. So it says, go cut a new one. Is that true? If you're going to make the chair, and we call that situational learning as well, and we spoke about that briefly, where you put the child in the context to produce something. It could be in recipes. You have seen teachers who use recipes in the classroom to teach fractions and that kind of a thing. You have seen, yes, half a cup of this or that. Or sometimes you see water pouring for different, say, liters or half a liter, 2 liters, and the child can see already. They can line them up after you're finished, right? Because you have this, you have to pour 2 of this into this container to get whatever the container says, right?
I've seen it too once, but well, I've seen it already. A child asthmatic, you know, the medicine with the that cup on top with the, you know, the 2. No man, with the little cup on top where they take the, you know, the shot, the measuring, yes, that measuring cap, and you know, saw his mother there basically doing some math with him while doing his medication.
Yes, because you can have water pouring. If you're near the sea, you can get sand, which creates some problems, but not as bad, you know, it doesn't get spilled. But the thing is that you can teach children, you know, things. Sometimes when your hand is manipulating, your brain follows. So that is something that we can do. The other thing, we touched on it earlier and I'll say more about it now, is that language and mathematics is also as a special arrangement because they are specialized language that you use in the math classroom. I ask you teachers not to go in and present any topics that sound foreign and far away and that kind of stuff before you start talking. Probably get the person to understand conceptually, not by doing a job, but by getting an example. For instance, if we're talking about fractions, we know we're going to do water pouring. They can see 2 of this, make 1 of that. So 1 of this thing must be a half of that, right? Because it's 1 thing shared in 2, 2, 2, 2. What did you say?
What did you say? 1 thing share for 2 people?
So half of, this is half of that.
No, equal. Okay. You want us to use the word language.
Language.
That's
A fraction is not something shared in 2 pieces because I just did this,
language.
right? You see how dramatic I was?
Oh, yeah.
So the kid is going to get it right away. Do you see that? So use your pieces, you do halves. It doesn't have to be in halves, but if I'm sharing it in 2, this is in 2, and this doesn't represent a half, now it does this. You see what I'm saying? So the thing is that I got dramatic because I want the students to know that we're talking about equality. We're talking about equality. So language is important. Okay? Now, you can start saying something about probably, what is the children share? They like, I don't know what. But anyway, candy. Well,
They share the rubber.
I want to be able to cut it. So probably you're having a party or something, right?
Pizza.
She has cooked some food already.
Pista.
Whatever food she has cooked already. If you alone get the food, right? That's the pot of food shared for 1 person. So you get the whole thing. Yes?
Yeah.
But suppose she's a popular lady in the area and everybody descend. Are the portions that the people are getting any bigger or smaller than when the kids started? Smaller. So
right.
Your kids, some kids believe that the bigger the denominator, right, is the bigger the fraction. So you don't say that and say it 65 times. You give them an example where they can understand that you have a set amount shared from more and more and more people. Each person is going to get a smaller amount, a smaller share. Right? So get them to understand that before you start telling them about comparing and all of that. Give them an idea. And use what we call a unit fraction, 1 in the denominator. So if it's 1 pizza and you eat it, you get the whole pizza. But probably everybody don't buy pizza, so I wanted something else to talk about. And something preferably you'd have to share, right? So you have to find those kinds of things. So we say food for Sunday dinner or something like that, to which the child can relate. Because Sunday dinner is something special. Banana chips, if it gets too many people have to share the 1 bag of banana chips, somebody might get a half a chip or some crumbs.
That's why it's not only being shared in 2 and not 3.
What's going on?
All right, now, every problem the student gets to do, or we see in our lives, has to do with language skills. None missing. Because sometimes language is not expressed in English words alone, it is expressed in symbols. For instance, on the road when we are working, so you have to work with kids at the place where they are, right? The streets that are made in the road for pedestrian crossing. It's not every place that has a pole which says pedestrian crossing, but just by the symbol and the stripes in the rectangle that is formed, we know. So that is speaking to us already. Pedestrian crossing. That's what it says. So language can be conveyed by symbols, in math by notational items, in dealing with people, movement. I can show my approval by my eyes. I can show disapproval by my eyes, right? You know, Old people used to say, all my mother had to do at me was to look and I get back in shape, right? Big language.
You see the raise one eyebrow
Big language. So language comes in all forms. But if you are to translate, you have to have some comprehension, right? You must reason logically when you're talking about math, right? You cannot be just all over the place. Like today, somebody gave me an example in class that was a non-example, right? I said the relationship between three given sets, right? And they said, they didn't know they were to say set A is a subset of B or set A is not a subset of B. I said, not is still a relationship. They said, well, on the street, I said, you weren't in the street, you were in context. So if you're at a family reunion, which children can understand, right? You have a relationship with everybody in the room because although it's extended with marriages and all of that, but you can say, you know, I'm from this side of the family, but I'm not from this side of the family. Some people have the names, but they got the names not through a bloodline, but through marriages or something of that nature. Children can understand relationships. Children can understand relationships. But if you go in there and you want them to compare fractions, you want to do this and do that, before they get the understanding, it is not going to be the most beneficial, especially if the person has not been shaped and molded by previous experiences. So you need to be able to speak to the child, okay?
No, I was saying that applies to, I think, all subject areas. Because, for example, when I'm teaching research, yeah, but I realized, well, a lot of the students, when you're going and teaching them, for example, even to how to write a proposal, they find it the most difficult.
I can relate.
Yeah, but if you say to them, okay, you want to find out the lowest market rates.
Mm-hmm.
What is your object? Why you want to do it? How important is it to you? How are you going to go about doing it? When you put it in that context, they get it. And then now they can relate it back.
That's what Mr. Bruno says.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Because, and then you use mortgage rates with grown people. But probably you would use something else for the children in school, right? So the thing is, it must be appropriate for the level at which you are talking, right? You have to reason logically. You have to recognize and employ common patterns of mathematics thought, because mathematics has its own structure, right? And you are to help the child build a structure in the mind's eye. You know, you see it coming up. For instance, the connection between addition and subtraction for the primaries, right? You know that addition is multiplication slowed down, or if you want to go from multiplication is speeded up, addition. You see that? Yes? So what happens, you have to say to a child, if I say 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 4 3 times, right? But I still can get to my 12 by adding 4 plus 4 plus 4, right? You can be manipulated so that you can pick up stones outside, because we want them to have that understanding. And let me say something to high school teachers. Don't even be afraid of bringing in manipulatives. Today I heard something in class that I will never repeat, but I'm still in shock treatment. Do not be shy of bringing in manipulatives. Children learn through manipulatives.
Miss, you're talking about high school, something shocked you in high school?
No, today in my class.
Oh.
today in my class at UWI Mona. Okay?
You mean this?
No.
Oh, you can share it with us in a speech.
Okay.
This is a math class.
All right.
It's a.
If a student is not able to, if a student is not able to speak, read, write, and comprehend language, then his or her ability to decipher the meaning of the written word is diminished. I'm going to say my statement again. Students do not need to practice patois. They get that one for free. We are to shape them. If that's the only way they can communicate when they meet you, you do not discount that. But you always have it that I'm moving this child from this place. I'm moving this child from this place. And I don't know if you have experienced this. Have you ever experienced a child writing in writing like a journal or something, or a letter? You know, letter writing is big in primary school, right? You ever see them try to write in all patois? No, the answer is no. They're trying to write in English. Eh? Pardon me?
Spelling in patois. How do you spell?
Right. But if the child spells in patois, like want and leave off the T, or just say WA for want, right? Then you are going to correct that child because you're shaping. Because what happens in the CXC and any one of the external exams, and even what the teacher says, is never written in patois. Stop delving into patois in the classroom. If you are not able to write it or read it, you cannot comprehend it, and you cannot give what they're asking for. If I say 5 less 2, some people do not know what that means. You understand what I'm saying? If I say 2 less than 5, right? People don't understand what that means. So you as a teacher need to know that you do not go into the dialect. You try to shape them to the language in which the assessment will be given. Okay. Language is very important to increase the proficiency of students in mathematics in particular, because other than the regular vocabulary where Johnny left for school at 8 o'clock, he reaches at 9:15, how much time has elapsed? Some people won't be able to do that. Elapsed. That kind of thing. You see what I'm saying? It's a head scratcher. Do we see that?
Yeah.
Therefore, you have to practice where they're going to be tested with English. Stay with the English. I call Jamaican children LEP, LEP. Limited English proficiency. Limited English proficiency. Okay. You have to learn in math, you have to learn the regular English words, and you have to learn the specialized vocabulary and the notation, which is a language. If we see a circular sign on a post with black edges and a red line through it, what does it mean in Jamaica?
No going through or something.
No entry. Where that thing is. So symbols speak to us, right? So a child must know the symbols in mathematics. And so we do not practice patois in the classroom. Students at any age, right, employ logic when they are working on problems outside the classroom setting. And we do not get them to do the same thing inside, because we have created an atmosphere in the classroom that shuts down their potential to be logical because they get confused.
You know, I've seen a child wearing, you know, he was there and I know them and he was there speaking patois. You know, after school they're speaking and his father is like, hey, what have I said to you about, you know, speaking to me? And his father was there telling him, what did I tell you? And then in class, I'm like, he's speaking proper English. And he just said to his dad, Daddy, I'm home just speaking to you. I'm not at school right now.
Well, the thing is that we need to have both. And we need to know when to use it.
Yeah, and
but I'm saying I'm talking about language
right.
inefficiency, where they're not proficient in it, we are not supposed, because in Jamaica, when you pick up your pen to write anything, you seem to get more formal than just talking interaction with people. But they're going to have to read without any help. You see the thing. And some language sometimes is explicit and sometimes it is implicit. If we hear the weather report and it says there is 60% chance of rain today, what do? What are some of the things that we do?
Carry an umbrella.
Exactly, we carry an umbrella. Did the man tell us to do that? No. But the implicit part of it, right? The other thing, you might bring a bag lunch instead of go buy lunch because you know if it's raining during that time, it might be. So you have all kinds of reaction to what is said explicitly, but there's some implicit meaning loaded into it. If I say to you, an isosceles triangle, what am I telling you? If I say, in an isosceles triangle, something, something, something about it, what am I telling you about the triangle without saying it? Isosceles triangle.
If you could you repeat, please?
I just know it has three sides. You know, at least two sides are equal. That's all I'm getting from that.
But it wasn't said. So that is the implicit part of it. I said isosceles triangle. Isosceles triangle.
Oh, the equal sides. Two equal sides.
Equal sides, and as a result, we learned something else about equal sides are opposite to
equal angles.
Angles. So the base angles are equal. So if you give me the vertex angle, right, I can find the measurement of the two base angles because I came in with the information that the sum of the angles of triangle is 180 degrees.
You said something earlier, like with the 60%, and I remember saying, you know, one thing I've heard, and I've always been like, we need to stop. Some person, they're like 60%, and I'm like, percentage. And that's the language, and I'm saying.
I'm not saying another word. Sometimes I hear people on I heard somebody in the pulpit on Sunday.
It really just gets me because I'm like, do you really go to the classroom and say that, you know, percent? And kids will question because I was told of a child.
And all Jamaican people said, put away your books in the decks. There is no decks in school.
And
there are decks on ships. There are loading decks. But there are no decks in school.
Asking questions, ask. Isn't it?
Yeah, but decks?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You know, this is.
I've never heard a Jamaican people say desk. A Jamaican person say desk. I've never heard.
That's who you've been speaking to, but.
Well, I have inspected school from St. Thomas to Montego Bay. And I have not heard a teacher say, put away your books in the desk. Never. I've heard them say decks. Deck is a loading deck where the truck backs up and packs or unpacks. Or you have the deck on the ship. There is no decks.
Percent really threw me. I'm not like the percent. I'm like percent.
Yes, but they say a lot of things, and they say something like.
But I was told by a child already at the primary level that he's like, You know, I had to correct my teacher, and she made a grammatical. I'm like,
Well, some people do it and some people just let it go. But the thing is that we are to be sure what we are saying, because we model for the kids by tacit agreement or any other agreement. We are models. Okay? All right. Now, if you give a theorem in math, like give me a theorem. If the segment joining the midpoints of two sides of a triangle is parallel to the third side and equal to a half of it, is a if then, right? Now, in school, when you say that to a child, in just out of nowhere, the child doesn't understand it. But the child does a lot of if-thens outside of the classroom. If I forget my lunch money, then I stay hungry. Right? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I leave my house at 9 o'clock, if I leave my house at 7 o'clock for an 8 o'clock class, then I'm going to be late. We use if then all the time, but we cannot get it over in the math classroom. Why? Why? We have to ask ourselves.
For me, I use a lot of real life situation. Therefore, the student actually get this as how I teach. Basically, when I teach them a concept, they start related to real life situation. So if that is that, then the same thing.
Exactly. Because what's the if-then situation? If all these things are in existence, then we expect that is the consequence. We should use those words with children because they know what is constant. If you are late 3 times, your mother gets a letter. If you are late 3 times to school, your parents will get a letter or a call. They understand, so it's the consequence. So if I have a isosceles triangle and given the vertex angle, then I can find the measurement of the remaining angles.
Right. Or if the two sides are equal, then it's an isosceles. Eh?
That's correct.
If the two sides.
So the thing is that we have these things, and we go in there and talk about isosceles triangle if then. Do you see what I'm saying? Isosceles is a foreign word. If then is a no, but they don't realize that, because when they're leaving, I don't want to be late for school, mom. Let me go. They're doing if then, you know, but they don't know it. But when you present it formally as given an isosceles triangle, then so and so, it escapes them. So why don't we make it so that when you're telling your mother to hurry up so that you can get to school on time, you're doing if then.
Right. So that would be like prior knowledge too, right? You could use that as a prior knowledge. That
you can use it as a preamble to when you're going to introduce, because there are some children who are punctual for class but not punctual for school because of the devotion, right? So if the child is going to get there in devotion, the teacher will still mark present. But sometimes what I see in some schools, the latecomers to devotion stand up at one side, so they know that they were late for school. So if you are hurrying your mother, you're using if we don't leave now, you know, I'll go during devotion, and that will be a consequence. So we have to place those things in concept, and any child from any socioeconomic bracket can understand that language. Any child. Do we see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So children employ the logic, it's not identified as that, and we go in there, we put some official name on it, and it still escapes them. And they do it every day. Teachers, let us wake up.
But even sometimes in children coming to school, they can't come into school late. I think they can't help it, you know.
That's not the point I'm trying to make, though. The point I'm trying to make is the logic that they use. If you come after 8:10, then you are late.
Okay.
All that. So we want to put if then in context for them in
Right.
there for me. We're not talking about their responsibility. Because
Yes, yes.
especially primary school children, they are never and not always able to go to school on their own. They have to hold out their hand to get lunch money and bus fare. They have to have a clean uniform to wear. That kind of stuff. They're not in charge. They're still very dependent on the parent or guardian. But I'm saying, if we are going to introduce if then, we're going to say, look, man, I'm going to teach you something today. Guess what? You do it every day. Did I bring down their anxiety? I bring down their anxiety. If I want to find out something, then I go do research. So you know what, you guys, you're going to do an if then for me today. You guys are going to go to the counselor's office and find out how many people came in. Not any confidential information. How many people came in. You can look at the board, and there's a book and a board sometime at the school to say how many children are in attendance, how many come late, and that kind of stuff. You are doing a survey, right? So you are doing a survey of how many patties they sell or how many whatever, right? So you're going to say that you have been doing this. You have been doing this. All I'm going to do is put it in dress-up clothes, like how we dress up. When we're going to our wedding, we dress differently from when we're going to just be in our house and just lazing around, right? Different from when we are going to church. Different from when we are going to school, dress down day. Different from when we are going in uniform, right? So different occasions call for different things. And when we look, the children are doing it, and we can't get it across to them, and they do it every day. Something is wrong with that disconnect. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. Because nobody on this earth is supposed to be afraid of math. Nobody. Because they do it, and all when we dress it up, they should see that it's the same structure. That's why when the child is young, you talk to them with structure and texture and all that kind of stuff. Bring the big one, bring the little one, bring the red one, bring the blue one. You are saying discriminate. As I say, you should know a plus sign different from a multiplication sign. You should know if a sign is like this, if a sign is like that, it's the same thing flipped over. We're talking about what? What we're talking about here, sir? Symmetry, right? But we don't put it in that. We don't even see that as symmetry. Because if I have something turned up like this and I flip it over, when I fold it, they're going to match. And our kids can understand. Our kids cannot understand, and they know when a cup is turned up or when a cup is turned down. Why? They do it every day, but we have to see through it and see where they're doing it in a context that they understand. English is the primary language of communication in Jamaica, but is not the primary language for discourse. So when you're in a formal situation and we have no practice, we cannot benefit. That's why I call them LEP children. Limited English proficiency. Okay? Every assessment is a language test, no matter what content area. Every assessment, and I also have a big lecture on assessment. Every assessment is a language test, period. No questions asked. Because nobody has ever seen a CXC paper in Patois. Okay? It's better to have both of them because one of them has dire consequences. If you cannot speak Patois, you can speak English, you're better off than can speak Patois or no English. Because every test is a language test.
That's true. I have a sister, she homeschooled her daughter because she believed that she wanted her daughter to speak standard English only. But when Michaela was enrolled in school at 9, when the teacher was talking in Patois,
she didn't understand.
She couldn't understand anything that the teacher was saying.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because I do not understand. I'm Jamaican born and bred, right? But some people are speaking Patois and I don't have a clue what they're saying.
Like some areas you go, that's true.
That's true. I'm be writing it. I can't even read that stuff.
All right. Why is every test a language test? Because you have to comprehend it. You have to understand what it means.
Understand each question and what is being asked.
Because if you do not understand the question, first of all, you don't know what is given. Second of all, you don't know what they're asking. If somebody, and sometimes when you get some ideas and you don't know anything, you read into the question, what is it you want? The word not negates all that you were taught to do. Give me the exception. They don't know what's the exception. Because if I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 11, 12, what's the exception there? 2, 4, 6, 8, 11, 12. What's the exception? 11 is the exception. Because everything else is a even number. Right? So therefore, they have to understand that. What does not belong? What does not belong? And so therefore, you know that they have to interpret. Because there are 3 stages to any problem. You're given a scenario. And you have to fix it for some particular goal. You need to know what you have to bring to the table, but you have to understand the situation as it exists before even you try to solve the problem. So therefore, you have to devise an appropriate strategy to solve the problem. Most, if not all, formal assessment requires reading. Most formal assessment requires reading. You may recognize something and it becomes vague because you forget some steps. And do you know that in every problem you get, they give you a certain information to start? And I said before, and I say it again, some things are explicit, some things are implicit. Like with the triangle. If they call a triangle isosceles, you get at least 2 other pieces of information. Right? Then you can set up, now if somebody set up an equation. So if I have my isosceles triangle and I have my vertex angle, write an equation to represent this fact. What you going to write? 2 times x plus 36, I don't know or care, 36 equals, equal 180. But you see, they didn't give you the 180, so you have to know what to bring to the problem, right? You have to recognize what's the vertex angle, and you have to know the facts about the isosceles triangle. Do you see? They just give you one little thing, but how many things do you have to bring to the table? You see what I'm saying? Because not only have to recognize the attributes or the properties of the isosceles triangle, you have to remember that the sum of the angles of a triangle is equal to 180 degrees.
I just said 90, so
exactly. You see what I'm saying? The only way you could say 90 is if they say that there's a right angle triangle. Now, if I say it's a right angle triangle, what is it I'm saying explicitly? You hear the word right, but you have to translate it if you want to find out measurement of angles, because you can have an isosceles right triangle, because you can have 90, 45, 45. Do you see that? So do you see what is involved in there? It's not in patois language. It's written, it needs to be comprehended. First of all, it needs to be interpreted, then comprehended, then you have to do something. So there's at least what I'm given, what I need to do, and how do I get there? Okay.
My sister wasn't crazy after all.
Huh?
Wasn't crazy, no, because that's what she said. She said that they're going to do the test in standard English. They're going to complete in English. So she homeschooled her daughter, totally no English, because she just, what we just said.
She's off. Yeah. But the thing about it is that when something is given in narrative form, in an isolated context, like in an exam, you only have you to depend on. You only have yourself to depend on, right? If I say you only have yourself to depend on, what law is that in math? Property, law, axiom. We have properties. I said you only have yourself to depend on. The subject and the object is the same, so that is the reflexive property. Do we see that? Reflexive property. I cut myself. You have heard about the symmetric, the reflexive, the transitive, the associative, the commutative, all of that. Okay. So you only have yourself to depend on. So everything reflects on you, and you have to have the ammunition to get through what you have to get through. If you cannot read and determine what the test says, where are you left in the code? If it is like adding two fractions or something like this, do you know, right? If you say subtract this from this, some kids don't know how to write up the problem. Because if I say subtract A from B, how should I write that problem? B minus A, and some don't know where they.
Some will put A minus.
Some will put A minus B. Do you see that? So therefore, students have to have the language. So please, don't do the Papa thing. Do the Papa thing at your friend after 2:30, because you have the English and you have the Patois, and some teachers don't have the English. Okay. Sometimes you have to get the child to write, and I'm going to tell you some things that you can do to help children who have limited language, limited English proficiency. Because when children pick up their pen in Jamaica, don't care how much Patois they speak, otherwise they try to write in English. So what you're going to do is to get them to do a journal in math. First thing, you can develop a vocabulary list on the board, and you can get them to do. I learned today. A journal in math is fine, but you know what I give children? I give them one thing that can only work one sentence. That is your passport to leave my classroom, right? And I look at that one sentence, what I learned today, right? Or any interesting fact that you want to read, write for me. And I let them write. But I don't want them to write a paragraph. So I cut the paper in strips. And you only have a sentence strip on which to write. But it gives me language. It gives me language. And then it's easy for me to correct, because that means I can pay everybody some attention. And I correct it. I'm fixing the language. Do we see that? Because not you're going to say, I don't want to hear anything from you because you speak Patois only. But by the end of the year, my goal is to get you to be able to express yourself in a complete sentence. And you can get the cooperation of the English teacher as well. You can set up something where I saw in a school where everybody wear a band with a word. So your math vocabulary can go with the word. And the teacher wears it, the principal wears it, everybody wears it. And anybody who speaks to you, you have to tell them what that word means. So you have to find out what the word means. So it can be your vocabulary that you build on the side of the board as you get into your lesson. You can build it as you introduce a new word, then they have a vocabulary. Then you can introduce them to a part of a book called glossary. So we're going to make our own glossary in class, right? So that kind of a thing you can do, because it's all language. And we shortchange our children if we teach them in Patois and test them in English. Okay? So you can let this English teacher know what you're doing and say, I want my children to speak English. So please ask them to answer in complete sentences. Today I learned to add fractions. Any part or creep in there or any word, you know, you correct it, and it's one sentence. But we're doing that 180 days. And the child is in the 3rd grade. By the time, if everybody use that as an objective in the school, the child is going to know English by whenever. Okay. All right, specialized vocabulary. The math teacher may teach the vocabulary and their meanings directly. They can write it down. You can have little contest, little this, little that. Okay? So the thing is, we have a situation where we have to pay attention. You know, teachers are not only teachers. You know that. You know teaching is the hardest job. Who knows that? Okay. Teaching is the hardest job. Why? Because any other profession has aides to help them. This one might have a secretary, this one, the doctors have their book too, and the nurses and the tests and the MRIs and to diagnose. We have to diagnose, we have to treat, right? And we want them to come out smelling like roses on the other end. And our clients are reluctant in many cases. We have reluctant clients. If you are sick and you go to the doctor, you pour out your heart. Doctor, yesterday I got up off the bed and when I think I could step off, I couldn't. You're cooperating. Children come to school many times because their mother says come. If you get a little bit bigger and you get in trouble, you're going to tell somebody the truth so that they know how to fix it so you look better. So we, as teachers, we have to wear many hats without any aids. Do we understand that?
Yes.
We still have this job to do and we have to do it well. Okay? So we're going to call it for today. The next time I'm looking at... No, I don't. No, I don't mark. I don't mark. We are going to be doing something with the classroom environment next time. We're going to do something with classroom environment. Okay. No, I don't have any letter. I didn't get in touch with the school. I'm going to send a correspondent. Good night. Good
So
night.
Dr. Nelson, before you, so it's really, the class really begins 6 o'clock my time then, right? Not 5 and
4 o'clock my time, so.
it's 6 my time.
Off that.
Right.
Good night,
And
everybody.
Okay. Thank you.